install.
All right, go ahead and call this meeting in order. First item is roll call.
Alderman Arnold.
Here.
Alderman Bass.
Here.
Alderman Cleaver.
Here.
Alderman Knox.
Here.
Alderman Mills.
Here.
Alderman Skinner.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Okay, next item is invocation led by Pastor Darrell Jones of Crossroads Church, followed by Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Bass.
Let's pray together. Lord our God, King of the universe, we give you thanks for the breath that we breathe tonight, for the air that we breathe, for the community that we live in, for the rain that's been so needed, and God, just for friends and family that can live in a community together and help one another. And God, we even thank you that you're not a God of chaos, but you're a God of order and structure. And so that what we see before us tonight, the agenda, Board of Aldermen, a mayor, city staff, that's the structure through which you can work. And so God, I just thank you for the men and women that have dedicated a lot of time for a little money to help lead our community, to be the voice of their wards and of the city. I thank you for their diligence in their work. I thank you for our mayor and for his leadership. And I just pray over the proceedings tonight, God, that you would be honored and glorified by them. If there's things where there's disagreements, God, that you would just bring wisdom and discernment to the forefront. And may we as a community be better off because of the efforts made to be unified in this room tonight. We pray it all in the name of Jesus.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Change the agenda now?
Approval of the agenda. Next item. Let's talk about how we might need to move
I was saying, no changes necessarily, but we might need to move item 7 to later in the agenda. Waiting on him to be here.
Yeah, he's out on a call. So we don't need to make any. So we don't need to make that. I'll just when we get to that
Yeah,
item,
I
because
don't know
we'll
where
get
it
to it here in a second.
Yeah, just be whenever he
We'll
comes.
just move that, and as soon as they appear back, we will do that oath of office. So no changes to the agenda then. Seeing no proclamations. Like I said, the police officer oath of office, we will do that as soon as they return. So next item to be citizens participation. Citizens are asked to come forward to the microphone and give their name and address for the record. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? All right. Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Yeah, motion from Alderman Skinner to accept the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Knox. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, seeing no previous business, then move on to new business. First item on the new business is motion to rescind vote on first reading of Bill B-22-21. Just a little background on this. The previous meeting, last meeting we had, this was an ordinance that was on for its first reading. Due to there being 2 aldermen absent, the vote on it came up 3-1, which in order for an ordinance to pass, it has to have a majority of the total board, not just who's there that evening. So you have to have 4 votes. So since that did not gain the 4 votes, I was asked from a couple of you to, how do we reconsider that? So we reached out to Joe Lauber, and his recommendation on that matter was that we, if the alderman wanted to do that, then they can make a motion to rescind that vote. And then that bill could be placed on a future agenda for consideration again. Is that pretty much the gist of it?
The only correction I would have, Mayor, is that ordinances require 4 affirmative votes. It doesn't necessarily have to be 4 votes of aldermen because it can be a tiebreak where the mayor gets to break the tie.
Mayor, I move, or make motion to rescind the vote of bill number B 22-21.
Okay, I do have a motion from Alderman Mills then to rescind the vote on Bill B 22-21. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second, Alderman Skinner. Any discussion then on that motion?
Yes, Mayor. The action taken the other night involves a failed motion. In all the research that I have done to rescind a motion, it's typically done for a motion that passed. And if a motion had passed and any action had been taken on it, it could not be rescinded. Action has been taken on this one, even though it failed, by notifying the petitioner that this failed due to the failure of getting the 4 votes. The rescission of a motion that is failed is simply a moot question because you're rescinding nothing, because nothing was passed at that particular vote from the parties that I've spoke to. Based off of the deals there, because it comes out of an explanation to the school board in that actions passed and taken in original motion. It can later be amended as long as no action been taken after the original motion was made and passed. So everything in reference to rescission that I was able to find dealt with motions that had passed and had not, and no action had been taken. They could be rescinded, but if any action had been taken, they could not. So I think we would be in error to rescind a motion that failed under the circumstances that we have. And short of that, I would request a interpretation by a registered parliamentarian to make sure that we're doing the right thing by this particular motion.
I mean, it's your legal advice, correct, Joe, that this is as our city attorney, the way to move forward with this?
Yes, Alderman Arnold is incorrect in that a motion to rescind can be a motion to repeal or annul an action taken altogether. So you can annul a vote. Alderman Arnold also mistakenly mixes apples and oranges because the rule that would say that a ordinance cannot be passed with less than 4 affirmative votes is a rule that's set by statute, not by rules of parliamentary procedure. The vote on the matter that was taken at the last meeting had 3 affirmative votes and 1 vote against. Under any typical Robert's Rules situation, parliamentary procedure situation, that's a passing vote. It's not Robert's Rules that caused that to fail, it's state statute, and you're mixing incorrectly apples and oranges. So at this point, a motion to rescind is absolutely in order. It was previously notified, it was put on the agenda, and therefore a motion to rescind would require only a simple majority vote of the Board of Aldermen this evening. Had that motion been brought forward without notice, it would have required a supermajority vote to rescind the action.
Further question those making the motion in that one party was not here at that meeting, and the same with a reconsideration vote. Those that weren't present shouldn't be able to make a motion on it. It has to be those that voted one way or the other on that.
There's no rule whatsoever with respect to a motion to rescind. He's mixing up various motions. There are 4 different types of motions to undo an action that a board takes: a motion to renew, a motion to reconsider, and a motion to amend something previously adopted. Or the other 3 that we looked at in determining whether or not this board could take that action. They rule that someone votes in the affirmative or in the prevailing party doesn't really apply in the circumstance because, again, 3-1, the 3 votes prevail. It's a statutory rule that says that the ordinance itself did not have sufficient votes to pass. It's not a Robert's Rules issue.
I understand that the vote is not a Robert's Rules deal, but we're dealing with the Robert's Rule as to the rescission. And that's why I would like to have the parliamentarian's interpretation of it, because I have another source of legal advice that says that that the rescission doesn't apply for this.
I would suggest, Mayor, that
He can-
there
he
are
can make
6
that
members of
motion,
the Board of Aldermen. If there's a majority of the quorum this evening that wants to have this, have a parliamentarian come in and explain,
So he can make that he can make that motion and then take a vote on
he
that?
can make it, and if there's a second, then you can vote on it.
Okay. Alderman Honor, are you making that
I
motion?
will make that motion.
Okay, I got a
I just
motion.
want to make sure that we do this right for the petitioner and for us.
Okay. I got a motion from Alderman Arnold on the floor. Does everyone understand what he's asking? If so, is there a second? All right, seeing no second, we'll back on the original motion then, which is the motion to rescind. Any additional discussion on the original motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion to rescind, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Nay.
So 5-1. All right. It's our office. All right, so we will hold off on the next item of new business and move back up to our police officer oath of office for Nicholas Jeffries. Would like to come forward.
I state your name.
Nicholas Jeffries,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United
and
States
the laws of the United States
and the state of Missouri,
and the state of Missouri,
that I will observe the provisions
that I will observe the provisions
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the city of Green Valley,
of the city of Green Valley,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
all of my duties
all of my duties
as a member of the Green Valley, Missouri
as a member of the Green Valley, Missouri
Police Department.
Police Department.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
Then you could grab Scott.
Trying to get out your pictures. I'm gonna get into this. All right, we'll go back to new business then. The second item on new business is citizens participation guideline reviews. As we had discussed last time, we wanted to look at our guidelines for citizens participation. I believe Jamie sent those out to everyone. It looks like she has provided us copies here as well. Did you have anything you wanted to add in particular?
No, I mean, I think as we've talked before, it really is up to the board on what policies and procedures you want to have in place for the meetings. There is no requirement for, public comments or citizen participation. So, we've made that choice that that's the way we want to have it, and whatever rules are associated with that or guidelines are up to you. As you could see from the things that were sent out, they're kind of all over the place. There's not any kind of set standard for that, so it really truly is up to this board on how they, what provisions they want to put in place for that.
Looking over them, two things that I would kind of recommend that we look at going forward with is, I don't know if we want to keep it at 2 minutes or change that time, but regardless of what the time is, I think we do need to have some sort of set timer. That way we, especially me, I make sure that everyone is not going over the allotted time and so forth, kind of keeping us together on that. And then the second, just really more from a clerical standpoint, because we don't always get the full name and addresses necessarily, is to have people sign in, like on the podium, have a sign in where they put their name and address. They don't have to do it in advance. They can do it when they come up to speak, but just where we have that record and we make sure we get all that documented correctly in the minutes. I mean, those are the two glaring things that I think that we need to to look at adding. And other than that, I'm open for discussion on if there's anything else anyone would like.
I wouldn't mind seeing it being raised at 3 minutes instead of 2.
3 minutes.
Well, I was thinking. Yeah, I think 2's a little short, but 5 may be a little long, but I'd like to see maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty difficult to get it out without sounding like an auctioneer if you have much to cover.
Yeah, I noticed, was it the city of Bonner Springs is 5 minutes. I mean, I'm not opposed to 5 minutes either.
Mayor, if I might suggest, we do work with a lot of cities, and we do have some cities that will have maybe a shorter initial time frame, but then if there's a matter that, an alderman may want to make a motion to extend the time, they can do that as well, so that, also provides you an option to have some control. So I always recommend that we do these when kind of times are good. You don't want to do it when you have a very controversial matter coming up. But, some nights, we may have virtually nobody to speak. Like tonight, we didn't have anybody speak. Other nights, you may have 50 people in here, and everybody who gives, 5 minutes or 3 minutes, makes for a very long night. So there are some options
So just
there.
have, have like a standard time and then
Most
have the
cities-
option in there that it can be adjusted.
Yeah, most cities that I work with do about 3 minutes, and in some of them have an option where it's written into the policy where a board member can move to extend their time. You might also write into the policy, again, I think Mr. Murphy mentioned it, you can go any direction on this because you set the rules for this, but some will also allow individuals who signed up to speak or something to yield their time and say, okay, I won't speak. I was going to, I won't speak, so that person can have my 3 minutes. So that's another option for you.
I mean, would it be a vote to extend somebody's time? So if I move to extend somebody's time, would that be a vote of the board to approve
Yeah,
that?
typically, because again, kind of rules of procedure would say, I guess it's really more for discussion amongst the board where you can kind of call the question and cut off speaking. Usually it is if the board sets a policy rule that says, hey, it's 3, you should at least, seek the approval of the rest of the board members to extend it instead of just, somebody kind of unilaterally saying we're going to extend.
I would agree with that. I have 2 clarifications. You had mentioned some sort of timer. Or it's my opinion that we should have some sort of digital clock timer or something up front so that people could, I didn't know what you had in mind.
Yeah, that's I'd almost like some kind of visual thing where the speaker knows as well as, us, so
Sure. My second point of clarification was going to be, I don't disagree with the sign-in sheet necessarily. You're still proposing to have them state their name and address?
Yeah, we still have them state the name and address to sign in as well, because sometimes we don't, they talk a lot, some people may talk lightly or
spelling
or, it's a lot of times people are nervous when they get up here and they may run it together and sometimes they don't catch maybe the full street name or whatever. So it's more just to make sure we're not missing anything.
Yeah, agreed.
I know there's been times Jamie's had to go back and watch the videos a couple times to get everything, so.
Mayor, if I could, one other consideration, I have seen a city that did this and it seemed very effective for them, and also I'll just throw it out as an option. It may not be something that you all like, but I do have at least 2 cities that have a program where in order to, especially if someone's going to be bringing a problem to resolve, that they have a prerequisite that they try to work it out with staff first, because sometimes people will come in and they kind of waited a couple weeks to come to the Board of Aldermen meeting, didn't even know the fact that they could have gone to city staff 10 days ago and maybe had it resolved by the time they waited for a meeting. And so that gives an opportunity for them to at least try to resolve items with staff before waiting, the 2 weeks for a board meeting.
That's on that. Yeah.
I mean, I think from staff's point of view, we always invite people to come and give us the opportunity to try to work through something first. But
How do they get that out to the public? So I know maybe
If you're requiring
may
a
not
sign-up
know to
sheet,
even
it's
try to do
typically,
that, so.
yeah, so are you thinking sign-up sheet on the night of the meeting, or are you
Yeah,
thinking
like,
of
not-
previous,
yeah, like the
prior?
night of the meeting, yeah.
Okay, the ones that do that actually have a,
I did
they,
advance
like,
them.
if they're gonna have a meeting on a Monday night, they may require that, people sign up for public comments by noon on Thursday, so that it's part of the agenda. If you're gonna do it night of, that's probably gonna be less effective.
Yeah.
But it, it kind of helps sometimes, again, if someone is coming the night of, and if it's something, like if we have Monday meetings like we do, if something came up over the weekend and they want to come talk about it, then maybe there wouldn't have been time anyway for staff to work it out. But like I said, it's just a consideration for you. Like everybody does this just a little bit
Yeah.
different, so.
I don't want to make it too, to make it seem like it's difficult to get, we don't have a whole lot of citizen participation anyways, and I don't want to seem like we're making it more difficult to try, to
Yeah.
do. So, and personally, I wouldn't want to go that far yet, maybe down the line if we see it's needed, but I don't.
Yeah, I like to sign up.
The night of.
Come in, yeah, if you want to speak, you need to sign up and, limit your time.
Anyone else have?
Yeah, well, while we're talking about it, my only other comment regarding the situation would be, I think it should be wherever we end up, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, should be enforced consistently and not,
That's really, we had the timer, I think it'll help us enforce it a lot more, yeah.
with the exception of an extension.
Being a teacher, I'm very familiar with timers. I can send Jamie some recommendations. I could bring a bunch from my classroom we could try out. No, see which ones work. Anyone else have anything they want to add on this? So with that, is that something we need, like by resolution, if we want to make those changes, Joe, or? is it
That's a good way to go. I mean, you could, I wouldn't codify it as an ordinance. So resolution is appropriate to approve those at the time. You could do an ordinance. I just wouldn't recommend it be a codified ordinance.
Okay, so let me ask, so as for so we know bringing forth the resolution, is everyone leaning more towards 3 or 5 on the time?
I'm good
I'm
with
3.
3 in the
3
extension.
with the extension?
I agree.
Okay. And then having the timer present is there anything else anyone would like to discuss, or anything discuss adding, or anything on the current list we have that you would like deleted or changed?
What's on the sign-up sheet? Is it just name and address?
Just be the same thing we asked for, name and
I saw
address.
some of these had some quite
Yeah.
detailed requirements.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have, it would just be what we asked them to say, this name and address anyways. Anything else then? All right, so we'll get that put together for a future resolution then. All right. All right, no more under new business, seeing no presentations, public hearings, or resolutions. Move on to ordinances.
This is Bill number B-2220. This is an ordinance amending Traffic Code Schedule 2 stop intersections of the City of Green Valley Municipal Code.
Mayor, I move that Bill 22-20 be approved and made ordinance. Lost my other sheet that had the number.
2592.
2592.
2592. Sorry.
Yep, I have a motion of Alderman Arnold to approve Bill B-22-20 for its second reading, making an ordinance 2592. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Knox. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This is a roll call vote, Mayor.
Oh, roll call. I'm not
Alderman-
confused. We always have 20 resolutions ahead of time.
Alderman Skinner,
Yes.
Alderman Mills,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderman Bass,
Yes.
Alderman Arnold.
Yes.
All right.
The next one is Bill number B-22-22. This is an ordinance amending Title 4 Land Use of the Municipal Code of Ordinances in Section 400-230 Accessory Uses pertaining to garages and accessory buildings.
Mayor, I move that we accept the first reading of bill number B 22-22 and bring it back for its second reading by title only at our next regular session.
I have a motion, Alderman Bass, to approve Bill B 22-22 for its first reading, bring it back by title only for its second reading. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second, Alderman Skinner. Any discussion?
If you remember at the last meeting, this was one of the items that we had a public hearing on. But it essentially is adding some clarity and trying to restrict the Connex type buildings being used for sheds or garages and backyards. So this is a net accessory use part of the code. If you had any more detailed questions, I'm sure Mr. Trozen would be.
This
Happy to
is
go over
just
those
the
again.
building aspect, nothing with the parking we talked about last time.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
with these are also grandfathered in, current ones are grandfathered in, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
anything that was legal prior to this
Yeah.
would be a legal non-conforming.
Have any questions?
The note on the legal nonconforming is as long as they don't expand the scope or for some reason, if the use itself is not destroyed, is the typical rule for retaining a legal nonconforming use. If they do abandon the use, then it would go away. So if they were to move them off of a site for, I don't know what the city's period of time is, 6 months, a year, 6 months, then they could not move them back on at a later point.
Are they able to add a second one? If they're grandfathered in with one now, so you can't add a second?
You cannot
Container.
expand the scope. So whatever you were set at the time, you can't go more than that.
I have some issues in that I think the scope of the bill goes a little too far. It's infringing possibly on our Fourth Amendment rights as to what we can do on our own property. If you live in a homeowners association, you sign a piece of paper that says that you will agree to follow certain covenants and requirements for outbuildings and the like. Most of the citizens that this is going to affect that are not in homeowners associations have not agreed to this. And I have a significant contingent that has told me that they don't like it. So, you know, that a lot pertains to the being of a same kind and design of the residents for these buildings. Someone wants to get, I know of a gentleman that has a Rubbermaid building, plastic, that he got at Home Depot. It's about 8 by 8. Would not be allowed to use that into this because it isn't made of like material or same design as the structure that it's behind. So it's just a little bit of intrusive government control beyond and into an area that should be left to the citizens to take care of. I do necessarily agree that the connexes shouldn't be in residential areas, but again, we're not fixing anything by implementing this. Those that have them are able to keep them. And again, this is a situation where we're trying to control something beyond the front border of your residence and telling the citizens what they can and can't do on their own property. So for a couple of reasons there, the requirements of same kind structure and so forth could put it out of cost for some people to put up a structure to store their lawnmower or something in where they could get by with a smaller prefab building that doesn't conform to what this is asking for. So I think it's a little bit overreaching as a government entity to go that far into what people can and can't do on their property.
I disagree. I think we have to have some sort of guidelines and things put into place that, for all the neighborhood, just not for each individual, to be able to do just exactly whatever they want. On property, when you're inside of a city limits and you have a neighbor right next to you, I think there has to be some sort of, conformity, to the, the neighborhoods, to neighbors. Because I have talked to other people that feel, I guess, the opposite of you do. So that would like to see, a stronger ordinance against things. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, I side with Dale on this, and I've had many conversations with people when I'm not riding around on the cart. I think it is overreaching, I understand we don't want junkyards in the backyards and we don't want sheds that look terrible about to fall over. But I think the language in this is not clear. When you say it has to be like material and that kind of instance, you know, if a guy builds one of the 16 by 12 yard barns in his backyard and he uses T111, but his house is sided, now what are you gonna do? You're gonna tell him he has to side that shed, spend another $3,000 or $4,000? Want a nice building out of T111, as long as it's painted up and trimmed nice, works. I think the language needs to be cleaned up. If we're going after the Connex boxes, then we need to go after the Connex boxes, but it's kind of all been lumped in together, and I just think it's overreaching.
Mark, could we, I'm trying to think how to tackle that. I mean,
Well, there is
we had the
flexibility.
architectural in there.
There
I
is
mean,
flexibility in the language, you know, that it does say should be similar, it doesn't say shall be similar. So there is flexibility in the staff to work with the property owners in regards to that. You know, and we typically work with property owners in regards to that to provide that type of flexibility, to make sure that it is very similar to the style of home, you know, in regards to that.
so are we thinking more the architectural aspect of it being similar? I mean,
That was the goal, is to try and work to make sure it's consistent, you know, in the neighborhood, with the type of material that is very similar to the type of material that is with the residents.
Yeah,
If you're trimming it out, I mean, the way you described it, it would be very similar to the siding that would be trimmed out, you know, the way the home would be trimmed out.
I just don't like the language. I mean, yeah, there's, even there's, you know, you say you work with every people and everything, just the way it's written, there's, to me, it's nah, we decided you aren't gonna do that, and you're not. And to try to say we wanna stay with the architectural of the area, I don't see too many barn-shaped houses sitting around, so, and a barn-shaped building is pretty popular because it's got lofts and stuff in it, and I just think we're overreaching our boundaries.
And sometimes not being clear, well, we have an excellent staff and they do a fine job now working with the public. We haven't had that always, and I would hope we wouldn't see it again in the future, but if not enough direction is given, it leaves a little bit too much leeway for interpretation by someone who is in that position and may not have a good grasp of what is needed to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Guess
that
you
one.
could always have the option of, if you're unclear about H, you could always take H out and leave I in.
Yeah, I have a concern with that as well. I mean, I think Rick makes a good point there that, I mean, if somebody builds a brick house, does the shed have to be brick too? And then to Dale's point, somebody goes to Home Depot and buys one of those nice Rubbermaid style sheds. It's like, you know, is that really an issue? I mean, I get the point of the Connex containers, a metal rusted out Connex container. That there's a line there, obviously, but yeah, I would just agree with Alderman Knox.
So I was gonna say, I think the intent here with H was to show what is desired. I is what's covered that says specifically the types of structures that we don't want, like the Connex type buildings. You know, to Mark's point, I mean, I guess we could just take it out, but I do think it's fair in the code to express what is desired, or, you know, what perfect world, this is what we're going for. It doesn't say that you have to do that, and if the language needs to change some, or if you'll decide that just needs to not be there. I think the point of this is we do have an issue, and we've had tons of complaints on the Connex type buildings, and that specifically is what I is trying to to cover. And you can't just say just that type of building, because we see all kinds of things that people come, if you pigeonhole yourself too much into just saying that, then we'll be coming back again to add something. So I think it was trying to cover all of the things that we didn't want at one time. And then, like I said, H was kind of trying to say, this is what we would desire the most. But that's not the holdup. And I think there's probably flexibility in that if that's the thing that is causing the discomfort or the unease about the ordinance. I think there's room to work with that.
Yeah, I just want the language cleaned up a little bit. And part of this goes back to, and you may have known him, nobody, we used to have a gentleman here that went to school to be an inspector, and he got promoted to be an inspector, and the builders were about ready to they were pulling their hairs out because there was no wiggle. This is what it says, that's what it is. Well, we haven't always done that, we've wiggled here a little bit on this kind of building. Nope, you're not gonna do it. They finally had to remove the gentleman from the position and put him back in the water department. That's what scares me. If you get somebody comes in, when Mark retires or whatever, and somebody else comes in.
No.
No, that's not. So that's the part that scares me, is if you get one of those people that it's dead, this is black and white, end of conversation. And I'd just like to see us clean it up.
Well, that's where I'm a little confused about. If you're uncomfortable with H, just amend and remove it. Just delete statement H and keep I.
If you look at the ordinance
Because-
that we're proposing in front of you.
Yeah. There's only two statements that I'm proposing. It's H and I. And if H is the one that you're concerned about,
Okay.
just delete H and keep I. I prohibits the Connex buildings.
Yeah, if we can.
Remove H.
If we can remove that out of there, I don't know if that has
So
to
you
come
wanna-
back to us. Yeah, that's.
I'll entertain a motion then.
I'd make a motion that
Remove
we.
H.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we remove H out of the language.
I got a motion from Alderman Knox to remove section H, second Alderman Arnold. Okay, this vote will be on the motion to remove H. So any discussion on that motion to remove H?
Can you read H out loud?
Yep.
Yeah.
So H said the exterior building materials and colors should be similar to the main building or should share the architectural design of the principal building.
The architectural design part.
So
H gone, it would still be getting rid of the
Yeah, so
Connex type
yeah,
buildings.
Yeah, I below that specifically lists out the types of buildings that would not be
This is.
allowed.
Get rid of the Connex boxes.
Yeah, but does that open us up for someone else that they can build something else?
Well, if they're gonna build, then they'd have to come to planning and zoning. and get-
You know what I mean?
Right.
All of a sudden now, we can keep going back and forth, I guess, but.
Any other discussion on the motion to remove H? All right, seeing none, all in favor to remove H, please say aye.
Aye.
Say aye. All opposed, same sign.
then
All right, so H is, wait, if I want, so H is gone. Now we're back to, the ordinance with just I. Any discussion, additional discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Nay,
5-1.
aye, whatever.
That was a aye for not aye. No. All right. That's it for ordinances. Next up, city attorney's report.
Mayor, members of the board, just wanted to let everybody know, we did take all of our staff to the Missouri Municipal Attorneys Association meeting down at Lake of the Ozarks the weekend before last. And so everybody has all of our updated training, our continuing education for the year. So that's very helpful. It's a great conference. All the city attorneys from all over the state gather together for that. From a hiring standpoint, we are currently sitting at 9 full-time attorneys, and we are going to be adding one a week from today, August 1st. And this new attorney their role will be primarily to work on creating a litigation division for our firm. So we're excited to get that up and running. And then we are working, at this point, we will be we have a contract on a building, and we look to be moving at the beginning of November to another location in Lee Summit that will allow us to grow into the future. For the items I've got for this evening.
Next up, city administrator staff reports.
No reports tonight.
From anybody?
I know.
Man. All right. Next up, board of alderman reports and comments. Alderman Arnold,
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Mills,
Nothing at this time?
Alderman Bass,
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Skinner.
Yeah, just something quick. So last weekend, I had the opportunity to do a ride along with Sergeant Stratton's squad. And I just wanted to express my thanks for having me. I plan with riding with every shift just to kind of meet everybody. And just to pass along my thanks for what you guys do every single day. It's a dangerous job. I think we all saw how dangerous a simple traffic stop can be last week with the death of a North Kansas City police officer. So I think I can speak for everybody on the board when I say that we support you guys and we thank you for what you do and we have your back. So appreciate it.
Okay. Alderman Knox.
I just want to thank the city for my spiffy new shirt.
Looking good, looking good.
All right. Alderman Cleaver.
Nope, nothing at this time.
Next up, mayor's reports. I got a couple things. So on, I get the date right, August 2nd, what is it, 4:30, right?
4:30 to
Okay.
6:30.
4:30 to 6:30. We are having calling it what, off the clock, that we decided. Off the clock, so we've invited, we sent actually emails out to everyone with a business license.
In the city.
Everyone with a business license to come and just kind of give all the business owners a chance to address any concerns they may have with us, help that they could see, help the ways the city could help them. So again, that's August 2nd, 4:30 to 6:30. It'll be at Iron Kettle. So we're hoping to get some good feedback from the businesses that attend to that. Next up, a couple things, and I've already talked to Mark about a few of these, but with the apartment complex, parking requirements was something that came up that I had asked Mark about to kind of look at the surrounding communities to see where we are at with our parking requirements compared to everyone else. We are pretty much right in line with what we require parking-wise. Some cities do require like an additional 1/4 of a space for every unit for visitors. So I told him I would see if that was something we were, if we wanted to look at moving forward with adding additional parking requirements to future multifamily residences like that, we could. I don't know if there's any interest in that to increase that parking requirement, because that would be something that would have to go to plan and zoning, probably, correct? Is that something the board wants to send a plan and zoning to look at, increasing that parking requirement?
Yeah, because I've driven through an area that people park in their driveway, and there's no way that they could park a full-size vehicle on there without blocking the sidewalk. And so something in the code might need to state that driveways need to be long enough that preclude a vehicle parked in the, in the drive, that it would not block the sidewalk.
Is it currently set? I mean, is it currently?
Well,
I know we can't block the sidewalk currently,
a
but
duplex? Are you referring to
Yeah,
a
they were
duplex?
duplexes up in the area,
Well-
but it
well,
was one
this-
vehicle in the driveway and it was still hanging into the sidewalk. And it
Yeah,
was-
this wouldn't necessarily pertain to a duplex lot. This is like on a multifamily complex.
Okay, well, I think actually this was a fourplex or whatever, which would fall more into your deals. It's up off of Greystone.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's one of those things, and I've seen it elsewhere where there's just not enough driveway to park a vehicle without it hanging over into the driveway, into the sidewalk. So when plan reviews are done, that needs to be addressed at an earlier time to keep the sidewalks open so pedestrians don't have to go into the street.
Okay, so we do have the code that requires that, so I'll have the code enforcement officer take a look at that to make sure those sidewalks aren't being blocked up in that area. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. What this basically pertains to is like, this would pertain to the multifamily development that was before us last week, where we have a parking lot and we have a multifamily complex, and you calculate the number of spaces based upon the multifamily units.
Right.
And so you calculate out based on the number of units. So like, for example, Grain Valley, for 1 to 2 bedrooms, it's 2 parking spaces per unit. But then like for some other communities, like for Lee Summit or like Lenexa, they add then an additional 0.5 parking spaces per unit for visitor parking is added on in addition to the number of parking spaces for the number of bedrooms. So that's an addition, not to like an individual lot for like a duplex
Right.
and a driveway.
I think it's needed very much because while we only consider two cars to an apartment, a lot of times with the cost of these apartments, there's gonna be, 3 or 4 people sharing the rent. Will have 3 or 4 cars, or if there's 2 couples, definitely 4 cars. So 2 cars per unit is not gonna be adequate there, and the people living there are gonna have all kinds of issues when it comes to parking.
Okay.
So yes, something needs to be addressed there to make life easier on people that's gonna living in these high density areas like that.
Just have plans on look at it and give a
You bet.
recommendation to us.
You bet.
And my next thing revolves around parking also. So we had a resident talk, and I've noticed, especially with Woodbury connecting now and more houses being built up, I don't know what the name of those streets are, but up on the hill that are all those streets are connecting. A lot more traffic using Woodbury now. Especially, we're talking about Woodbury Drive there where the duplexes are. Before the street kind of ended down there, now it goes through and connects into the Woodbury subdivision. A lot of traffic using that street. We have cars parking on both sides of the street, and there's a lot of cars parking on both sides of the street. And I've got some concerns about kids running out in the street, kids playing basketball in the street. And if all those cars there, it gets kind of difficult to see the kids at all times. I don't know if there's a solution for that though, because again, like what Alderman Arnold said, there's several people, I think, renting those duplexes, and I just don't know if there's room for all those cars in the driveway. So I don't know if when we could look at no parking on one side of the street, but I think then we're just forcing all the cars to one side of the street, and that might make it worse. So I don't know but I told the individual that I would bring it up and see if everyone's been up through there, and I know Alderman, bet you might drive up through there.
Yeah, I drive that every day and I don't disagree with that statement, although I don't know how to address it.
So, staff have any recommendations or something you guys want to go back and discuss and see if you can come up with anything or?
Currently, under our way we operate, the only way we'd be able to do it is if we passed an ordinance about no parking on the particular side of that street up through there. I addressed this years ago about maybe an ordinance that set parking only on one side of the street, period, throughout the town. You park on the north side, or you park on the west side, or south and the east, or whatever, and you post it at your city limits that just like you do the speed limit. Speed limit's 25 unless otherwise posted. Parking's on the north and the west side of the street unless otherwise posted. That would save a lot of signage, except for the spots where you're going to say, yes, you can park here, parking allowed in areas that would do it. But I think legal told us that would be a problem at the time, but I talked with those, didn't understand that. The notification would be done the same way as the speed limit at the city limit sign there. But that would take a while to get people educated as to what was done. And there are going to be those people that would be upset because you're telling people they can't park in front of their own house. They got to park across the street. People across the street don't want to have the cars parking in front of their house, so there would be inherent problems with that as well. So, while it may not work across the entire community, it could, it might warrant some research as to where it could be implemented in certain areas and, high density areas where there's a lot of rental property where there's a lot of extra cars might be areas that might be considered.
I guess if city staff just wants to look at it and see if they can, I don't know, I mean, Captain Hedger might be able to add, but would put them on one side of the street make it worse?
I don't know if it make it worse, but Woodbury has become just like Snybar,
Yeah.
and we don't allow any parking on Snybar. But it's, now that it goes all the way through, the people drive through there over the speed limit, but it's way too fast, it's like, it's become just another boulevard, just like Snybar Boulevard, so,
There's a lot of children that play out there.
yeah, I mean, almost everybody out there's got kids, and they're always in the street, so. I figure if you take one side and make it no parking, I guess it's 50% better, but it's still a lot of kids playing.
And there is something to be said about cars being on each side, because when it gets narrow, cautious driver will slow down versus if it's wide open, they'll allow, you can give them the feeling they can drive faster up through.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some level you're probably looking at a quantity issue, and I don't know that
Yeah.
you're going to fit all the cars on one street. I mean, that's just the reality. I don't.
Yeah.
And keep in mind too, the process that we go through when we do any of that. I believe we typically go out and notice all of the property owners or properties that are going to be affected. So whatever decision you would make with that would involve, them having the opportunity to come here. So you're gonna, I'm sure, have people that maybe don't care if they can still do it on their side of the street, but how you would pick that side of the street and where those other cars would go. Would they just then go over to Valley Ridge or? I don't disagree that it's an issue. I don't. And I mean, we can talk about it some more. I just
I
off the
think
top of my head,
staff
I
wants to
don't
talk
know.
about it and maybe see what you can come up with, get the police department involved, and maybe it's more enforcement, maybe it's speed enforcement, I don't know, maybe it's, if you guys want to get together and kind of report back to us, if you come up with anything. So there's not always a solution, but at least we can look for one, see if we can find one, so. That's all I have. I do believe we have a need for an executive session.
We do 1 legal, 13 personnel.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion then to adjourn the executive session for legal and personnel. I have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Bass, have a second. Second, Alderman Knox. Any discussion? Will be your roll call.
Alderman Arnold,
Yes.
Alderman Bass,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Mills,
Yes.
Alderman Skinner.
Yes.
All right, we'll adjourn the executive session.